How goes it, Legacy Legion? Welcome to round 3 of the first ever Legacy of the North Invitational Tournament. Here we have Daniel versus Michael, which is Red White Initiative versus Dredge, a Legacy classic. So Daniel has been on Initiative Stompy for very long time now, ever since it was a deck. This was back when White Plume Adventure was running rampant and crazy. Michael is a pretty competent Dredge player from what I can tell or what I've heard. I haven't seen much of his gameplay because he is outside of my local region. But he is borrowing our good friend Justin Lamb's deck, and we're going to see a lot of foreign foils from the Dredge deck. Alrighty here. So Michael drawing his opening 7. Lotus Petal, Cephalid Coliseum, Gemstone Cavern, a couple of Narcomoeba. Seeing the 2 Narcomoebas really makes you want to say, oh, there's only one Narcomoeba, sorry. There's a Narcomoeba and a Breakthrough. So seeing those, kind of makes me really want to mulligan the hand. We're going to see Daniel's hand here as well. Looks like there's an Anointed Peacekeeper. Not sure. I think that's a Chromox, Arid Mesa, Solitude, Chalice, Simian Spirit Guide, and a Lotus Petal. So Daniel is keeping his hand of 7. Lotus Petal, Simian Spirit Guide, Chalice of the Void, Solitude, Arid Mesa, Chromox, and Anointed Peacekeeper. Michael on Dredge is taking a mulligan. So there's Cabal Therapy, Narcomoeba, Careful Study, Stinkweed Imp, Narcomoeba, Breakthrough, and Putrid Imp. No lands, nothing to do. Already a mulligan to 6, so you can't just discard. So he is going to a mulligan to 5. Michael drawing Bridge from Below, Icarid, Faithless Looting, Stinkweed Imp, Mana Confluence, Stinkweed Imp, and Golgari Grave Troll. So you guys are going to have to excuse me. Looks like he's going to keep the hand, but you're going to have to excuse me. I don't know too much on how to play Dredge. It is one of those combo decks that I never really interested me. So we're going to learn how it's played today. Daniel's going to open with an Arid Mesa here. So cracking the Arid Mesa, probably going to go find either most likely going to be a plateau. You want to be using your initiative triggers to be finding your basics. And I think there's only like a mountain and 1 plains. It's typically how the initiative decks usually build their decks. When I built them, I pretty much like playing 2 plains because we use Blood Moons and Magus of the Moons quite commonly out of the board. So I don't want to be hindered on white mana. Daniel finds a plateau off of the Arid Mesa. Going to play a Chrome Mox. Exiles the Solitude, so now Chrome Mox generates white mana. Taps for 2. Exiles Simian Spirit Guide, and down comes Anointed Peacekeeper. So Anointed Peacekeeper enters the battlefield. You get to look at an opponent's hand, and you then choose a card name. It doesn't have to be a name that's in the person's hand, but any cards with the chosen name cost 2 more to cast. So we're going to see Michael's hand of Bridge from Below, Faithless Looting, Stinkweed Imp, Golgari Grave Troll, and Mana Confluence. So Daniel just double checking what every card does because none of them are in English and they are all unreadable. You just need to identify them by the pictures. So it looks like Daniel has named Faithless Looting as the card from Anointed Peacekeeper. Has Chalice of the Void and Lotus Petal remaining in hand. So down comes the Lotus Petal, and he passes the turn to Michael. Michael draws return. It is a Grief. Gonna play the Mana Confluence for the turn. Does he really want to play this Grief, though? The problem is... So it is a Chalice, so he's just going to take the Chalice. Now Daniel has no cards in hand. I guess the information would have just been good. Daniel top decks Ancient Tomb. Attacks with the Anointed Peacekeeper, bringing Michael down to 17. Gonna pass the turn back. So Michael draws for turn. Careful Study off the top. Taps for 1 from the Mana Confluence. Play Careful Study. So no cards to Dredge as of yet, so he gets to just draw 2, and then he puts Bridge from Below and Golgari Grave Troll into the graveyard. It looks like he top decked Grief and Cabal Therapy from the Careful Study. Right, so he passes the turn back. Daniel draws another Anointed Peacekeeper. Attacks for 3 with the Anointed Peacekeeper on the board, named Faithless Looting. Drops Michael down to 13. So main phase 2, Daniel gonna tap or play the Ancient Tomb, tap it for Anointed Peacekeeper number 2. This is gonna get a little complicated here, and this always happens with Dredge players, but there's gonna be a lot of piles on the board. So the Simian Spirit Guide that's currently sideways is exiled from Daniel's field, which is player 1. The 3 cards, Faithless Looting, Cabal Therapy, and Grief, are Michael's hand. The Mana Confluence is the land on the board, and then all the other cards are in Michael's graveyard. So just for anyone, if you guys are watching this, you can kind of use this information, but when we designed the Legacy of the North mat here, I don't know if it's an old saying and that people just don't know or something, or if they just thought it was part of the design. The middle strip, the red zone, is for combat. It was specifically designed that way for creatures entering the red zone to indicate attacking and blocking. So we've seen a couple times where people are just playing cards onto it, where like you see Daniel's Anointed Peacekeepers are just in that zone. But there is quite a bit of space in front of them. Like, there should be enough space for you to put everything not in combat behind the red zone. However, there is no strict rules. You don't really need to abide by them, but if you wanna help be organized and orderly, you can abide by the red zone location. Especially when it comes to games like Dredge. I guess it's hard for Dredge players to do it because they require so much space because they expand their graveyard like crazy. So Michael is going... You're going to see this in a second. So Michael's going to Dredge 6 here from the Golgari Grave Troll. The second Anointed Peacekeeper has named Hogak. So off of the first Dredge trigger here, or off of the Golgari Grave Troll Dredge here, we find 1 Narcomoeba. Michael gonna tap for 1 mana from the Mana Confluence to cast Cabal Therapy. Sacks the Narcomoeba. Oh no, he doesn't. He's just casting it. It's not flashback. So he's gonna Cabal Therapy himself, name Golgari Grave Troll. Puts Grave Troll into the graveyard again. And it looks like he's just gonna pass back. Daniel draws Fable of the Mirror Breaker for turn. Attacks with 2 Anointed Peacekeepers. Michael gonna block 1. When his Narcomoeba dies, he will get a 2/2 zombie, but he does take 3 points of damage, goes down to 9. So Michael trades in his Narcomoeba for a 2/2 zombie. Daniel going to cast the Fable of the Mirror Breaker in his second main phase, dropping down to 15 life. Gonna create a Goblin token. So Michael untaps. At the beginning of his upkeep, Icarid is going to trigger. So at the beginning of the upkeep, if Icarid is in your graveyard, you can exile another black creature or black card, and you may put it onto the battlefield. It is a 3/1 haste, and at the beginning of the end step, you must sacrifice it. So Michael's going to Dredge 6 here for his draw step, I think. So it looks like the Icarid is in play. Okay, so there's a Narcomoeba trigger here. I think what Daniel is wondering here when he tried to read the Italian Bridge from Below is how to get it out of the graveyard. So if you have Bridge from Below in your graveyard and a non-token creature you control dies, you get a 2/2 black zombie. However, if your opponent, if any creature goes to the graveyard, it will exile itself out of the graveyard. So even if the gobble, or even if the token, or even if the creature that goes to the graveyard is a token, it'll exile Bridge from Below out of the graveyard. And I think that's what Daniel is wondering, because I think he's wanting to sacrifice his goblin token here to block, because there's no way that Michael's gonna not attack with this Icarid. I think if Michael attacks with the Icarid, Daniel was willing to trade his goblin token, even though he has his 2 anointed peacekeepers that can trade favorably. He wants one of his creatures to die to get the Bridge from Below to be out of the graveyard. So it's actually beneficial for Michael to just not attack here. He is attacking with it, and Daniel is going to block. So it's going to result in what we expected. Are there 2 Bridge from Belows in the graveyard? No, there's only 1. So he was explaining that he's going to stack it so that he does get his zombie before it gets exiled. I think it should be, like, both should happen either way. I'm not entirely sure. So this Golgari Grave Troll. So just everyone's on the same page. The Golgari Grave Troll is in Michael's hand. It is not in the graveyard. He has 1 Golgari Grave Troll in the graveyard, but the other one is in his hand. So Daniel is going to draw Seasoned Dungeoneer for his turn. Is he going to discard it, though? I don't think he will. It's a value engine now. He could have discarded it for a new card from Fable, but it's already so good, I don't think you want to cash it in. So Daniel going to get the initiative here. Going to fetch for a basic land. Finds a plains. So not going to play the plains yet. Still in his hand. Okay, so that was main phase 1. Now we're going to go into the combat step. He's going to attack with 2. And because they are clerics, it will trigger the Seasoned Dungeoneer. So he can target one of them, and it gives it protection from creatures, and they get to explore. So if you don't know what explore is you may look at the top, or you reveal the top card of your library. If it is a land, it goes to your hand. If it is non-land, you can choose to keep it on the top, or you can put it onto the bottom. Or sorry, you not on the bottom. Sorry, you can keep it on the top of your library, or you can discard it. So it becomes like a little, almost like a surveil. So he's gonna dump the revealed Chalice of the Void into the graveyard. So now I think he's swinging in for 7. I believe he is attacking with both. So he's gonna chump the Anointed Peacekeeper with a Narcomoeba. So again, that Golgari Grave Troll that's next to the Narcomoeba, that one is in Michael's hand. So Michael is going to take 4, goes down to 5. Icarid is going to trigger at the beginning of the upkeep. He's going to exile Golgari Thug because he already has Grave Troll to Dredge 6. So now there's 2 Grave Trolls in Michael's hand. Dredge 6 is going to happen. There's another Golgari Grave Troll. There's a Narcomoeba. There's a Hogak. Going to trigger the Narcomoeba. It's going to enter the battlefield. So now Hogak. So even though Hogak is named from one of the Anointed Peacekeepers, he can still exile 1 card or tap a creature to pay for the Hogak, because it does have Convoke and Delve. So Michael is going to cast a Hogak, taps the 2 zombies for black, and exiles 1 Faithless Looting, Cephalid Coliseum, Gemstone Mine, Lion's Eye Diamond, Gemstone Mine. Oh, keeps the Faithless Looting, even though it's 5 to flashback. So exiles a bunch of cards. There's a Hogak now in play. Daniel's still no cards in hand. So those Golgari Grave Trolls are in Michael's hand. Probably just as a suggestion for the future, in any instance, I think you would want to put your graveyard in front of your board. So in this case, you would want to put your graveyard into the red zone and like bring your actual board a little bit further down, closer to you. That way you don't accidentally mix up cards into your hand and graveyard, and it's just a lot more clear for everyone involved. It might not be clear for your opponent because the graveyard is closer to them, but it should be fine. So it looks like Daniel went to draw, but then they're going to resolve the initiative trigger here. So initiative, he's most likely going to forge. There's no reason for him to scry. He already has a dominant board position with a creature that can attack for 6. So this game is pretty much over. I don't know what's being so thought about. The Anointed Peacekeeper just goes up to a 6/6 and just attack, trigger the Seasoned Dungeoneer, gives it protection from creatures, and Michael can't really do anything about it. Okay, so looks like that's exactly what's going to happen. There's the Explore. Ancient Tomb gets revealed, so it goes into Daniel's hand. Yep, and it looks like they are going to game 2. So both players are taking a mulligan, going immediately down to 6. Michael drawing Breakthrough, Chain of Vapor, Mana Confluence, Suffly Coliseum, Hogak, Golgari Thug, and a Putrid Imp. Actually, not a terrible hand. This is actually pretty good. The Breakthrough, and especially being on the play against a Chalice deck, really sets up what your deck wants to be doing in Dredge. Looks like Daniel is going to mulligan to 5. So it's going to be a repeat mulligan to 5 as Michael did it in game 1. Unfortunately, Daniel follows suit in game 2. So Michael is going to keep. It looks like he's pitching the Chain of Vapor. He's probably so the thing that he considered when making the mulligan was he is on the play. He does have the Breakthrough. Probably doesn't need the Chain of Vapor for a hate piece. So this is a better looking hand. Fable of the Mirrorbreaker, 2 Caves of Chaos Adventurer, 1 Fairy Macabre for interaction, Plains, City of Traders, and I think that's an Anointed Peacekeeper at the top there. But I don't think you can get a better 5. It looks like the top card wasn't an Anointed Peacekeeper, it was a Containment Priest. Daniel keeping his 5. Michael starting us off with a Mana Confluence, going into a Putrid Imp rather than the Breakthrough. Daniel going to draw Anointed Peacekeeper off the top, plays a Plains, and passes the turn. Okay, so before Michael is drawing, he's going to activate the Putrid Imp, which is discard a card and he gains flying until the end of turn. So he does this so that he can dredge 4 from the Golgari Thug. He is going to discard the Fairy Macabre and exile the Golgari Thug. Dang, Michael ripping Golgari Grave Troll right off the top. Plays the Suffly Coliseum and looks like he's just going to pass the turn. Oh no, he's just explaining what Suffly Coliseum does. Because I think you really want to activate Putrid Imp, discard the Golgari Grave Troll, and then Breakthrough, start dredging. And that is exactly what he's going to do. So Michael going down to 19 from the Mana Confluence, or sorry, 18 from the Mana Confluence, cast the Breakthrough. So draw 4. So Breakthrough is 1 blue X. You draw 4 cards, and then you choose X cards in your hand, and then discard the rest, and you keep the rest. Or you keep the X cards. So because X is 0, he will have no hand at the end of this. So the Dredge 6 is going to put in, most notably, a Narcomoeba and a Bridge from Below. There's gonna, and the Stinkweed Imp. So now he's dredging Stinkweed Imp for the second draw, so it's Dredge 5. So okay, so Michael reached out and I was also watching this game. So he mistakenly took the Cabal Therapy instead of the Stinkweed Imp. So there's actually a game rules violation that's going to happen here, which is, so the Cabal, so he just dredged 5 for the Stinkweed Imp, and now he's dredged 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So he's dredged 1 extra card because he should be returning the Golgari Thug with this dredge. So what happened was when he dredged 6 from the Golgari Grave Troll, then he dredged 5 from the Stinkweed Imp. But then and then for the third draw, he returned the Cabal Therapy instead of the second Stinkweed Imp, and then dredged 5 one more time for the Golgari Thug. So this is a games rule violation. What should happen here is the Ox of Agonis should reshuffle into your library because it's all public information anyway. And so now everything's resolved. Michael now has 2 Narcomoebas and a Stinkweed Imp on the board. And there's 2 Bridge from Belows in the graveyard. So now he can just flashback Cabal Therapy and make 2/2 zombies with every sacrifice. So this is turn 2, and there is 6 power on the board, or 7 power on the board, because Putrid Imp has Threshold, which means when there's 7 or more cards in your discard, you get +1/+1, and then it can't block. That's not all Threshold. Threshold is just a condition of if you have 7 cards in your graveyard, that gets additional abilities. For Putrid Imp, it gets +1/+1 and flying. It gets +1/+1 and it cannot block. So Michael is going to take game 2 in an incredibly speedy fashion. Here we are in game 3. Both players kept their starting 7. Daniel going to start us off with Ancient Tomb into Chalice of the Void. He should be at 18 there. That will probably get fixed momentarily. Michael top decking Lion's Eye Diamond here in the face of a Chalice of the Void. Plays double Lion's Eye Diamond, so now his hand is just full of 1-drops. Cabal Therapy, Breakthrough, Faithless Looting, Ox of Agonis. And it doesn't look like he can do much. Even if he were to crack one of the LEDs, he can't really do anything. The breakthroughs are already in the hand, so it's quite unfortunate there. Daniel top decks Caves of Chaos Adventurer for his draw for turn. Daniel deep in the tank plays Cavern of Souls, most likely naming Human for the Caves of Chaos Adventurer and the Anointed Peacekeeper. I think in the red-white version, you don't name anything other than, because if you're playing the red-green version, you might want to name Orc for the green, for the Undermounted Explorer or whatever it's called. Gonna exile the Simian Spirit Guide. There's a Caves of Chaos Adventurer. So Daniel will now take the initiative. He will search for a basic land for room 1. And because of this Chalice of the Void, Michael isn't really presenting much here, especially because he has 2 LEDs, so whatever he draws off the top won't really do much since they need to get discarded to the LEDs. So Daniel is playing the ideal line of play here for the initiative, which is play Caves of Chaos Adventure, which is a 5/3 with Trample, and then go into Forge, make it a 7/5, and then keep doing whatever. And then the next room after that is Trap, which is deals target opponent loses 5 life. So this is extremely fast start for the initiative deck. It would have been 1 turn quicker if there was a White Plume Adventurer. Thank God there is not. Daniel fetches a mountain from the initiative trigger and will most likely just pass the turn because it does not have haste. Michael gonna draw for turn. Gonna be a Bridge from Below. So Daniel is gonna forge. Puts Caves of Chaos Adventure to a 7/5 again. There's a Containment Priest off the top. Plays the mountain that we searched for last turn. Plays Lotus Petal. I'm gonna attack, trigger the Caves of Chaos Adventure, exiles the top card of the library. Just a small misplay there. Typically, you don't want to play your lands first, because you can hit a land off the top, which is what happened here in this case. So tapping for 3 mana. Probably going to play this Anointed Peacekeeper. So he's going to resolve. Michael revealing his hand. 2 breakthroughs, Cabal Therapy, Ox of Agonis, Bridge from Below, and Faithless Looting. Looks like Daniel is naming 2 breakthroughs and passing the turn back to Michael. Michael pretty hard stuck under this Chalice of the Void. Draws Faithful Saluting, another card that falls victim to the Chalice. If only he could have found just one more mana source that wasn't these LEDs, he could have played the breakthroughs before the Anointed Peacekeeper comes down, or came down. So he's cracking the LED, discards his entire hand, adding probably red mana here. Gonna do it again, and there's also no dredgers in his hand, so he can't even make these Faithless Lootings beneficial. Okay, so he's cracking the two LEDs for the Ox of Agonis. When you escape, wow, does it get rid of his entire graveyard? So when you escape with the Ox of Agonis, it comes in with a +1/+1 counter, and you also get to discard your hand and draw 3 cards. But because he has no hand anyway, so it's just a draw 3. Draws Lionside Diamond, Golgari Grave Troll, and Stufflight Coliseum. So if there wasn't a 7/5, if there wasn't 13 damage coming from Daniel next turn, like, Michael would have been in a pretty okay position at this point. It's just unfortunate that he was stuck under this Chalice for so long. Daniel playing absolutely exactly how his deck wants to be. Played the disruptive component of Chalice of the Void, and then it just continued to ravage his opponent's life total through the Caves of Chaos Adventurer and the initiative triggers, and then just has the card advantage from the mechanic. So at the end of Michael's turn, he's going to flash in a Containment Priest just for a little bit of extra damage here. So Daniel gonna deal 5 damage, or not deal 5 damage, but make Michael lose 5 life here. Going to draw for turn, Seasoned Dungeoneer off the top. That's pretty good. Gives his Cleric unblockable, or basically protection. But also draws him a card as well. I think he drew another Seasoned Dungeoneer. He did. And now we're swinging in with everything. I think he's going to give the Containment Priest the Explore trigger, and then he's also indicating that Caves of Chaos Adventure has a attack trigger that needs to be resolved as well. So the Containment Priest is going to be coming in for most likely, so at minimum 2 damage. So I think this is the Explore trigger. Yeah, okay, so that's 3 damage plus... Oh, there's a Solitude. Does this change things? So Anointed Peacekeeper is a 3... So 3 is 6, plus 7 is 13. So if he casts Solitude, he can Solitude the Ox, and he hits for Xaxes. Ooh, looks like that is what he is doing. Okay, and that should bring him up to 13, and then 7 plus 3 is 13. And that is game. So Daniel takes it in 3. Hope you guys like that one. We will see you for round 4 whenever it comes out. Have a good one.